I've said this for a long time. I've been talking about legal realism. I've been talking about how the institutions will not protect you. I've been talking about how radical liberalism and anarchism are and ultra leftism are infantile wastes of time and distractions, and we shouldn't tolerate it anymore. We shouldn't tolerate what amounts to identity politics based wrecking. I don't care anymore about that shit. And I think the story that is like really pissing me off is a story that in and of itself should be cause for a major rebellion, and it's getting barely any coverage at all. FBI raids home of prominent computer scientist who has gone incommunicado. Indiana University quietly removes profile of tenured professor and refuses to say why. A prominent computer scientist who has spent 20 years publishing academic papers on cryptography, privacy, and cybersecurity has gone incommunicado. Had his professor profile, email account, and phone number removed by his employer, Indiana University, and has his homes raided by the FBI. No one knows why. Xiaofeng Wang has a long list of prestigious titles. He was the Associate Dean for Research at Indiana University's Luddy School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering, a fellow at the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and a tenured professor at Indiana University at Bloomington. According to his employer, he has served as principal investigator on research projects totaling nearly $23 million over his 21 years there. He has also co-authored scores of academic papers on a diverse range of fields, including cryptography, system security, and data privacy, including the protection of human genomic data. I have personally spoken to him on 3 occasions for articles, here, here, and here. None of this is in any way normal. In recent weeks, Wang's email account, phone number, and profile page at Luddy School were quietly erased by his employer. Over the same time, Indiana University also removed a profile for his wife, Nianli Ma, who is listed as a lead systems analyst and programmer at the university's Library Technologies Division. As reported by the Bloomingtonian and later the Herald Times in Bloomington, a small fleet of unmarked cars driven by government agents descended on the Bloomington home of Wang and Ma on Friday. They spent most of the day going in and out of the house and occasionally transferred boxes from their vehicles. TV station WTHR, meanwhile, reported that a second home owned by Wang and Ma and located in Carmel, Indiana, was also searched. The station said that both a resident and an attorney for the resident were on scene during the last part of the search. Attempts to locate Wang and Ma have so far been unsuccessful. An Indiana University spokesman didn't answer emailed questions asking if the couple was still employed by the university and why their profile pages, email addresses, and phone numbers had been removed. The spokesman provided the contact information for a spokeswoman at the FBI's field office in Indianapolis. In an email, the spokeswoman wrote, "The FBI conducted court-authorized law enforcement activity at homes in Bloomington and Carmel Friday. We have no further comment at this time." Searches of federal court dockets turned up no documents related to Wang, Ma, or any searches of their residences. The FBI spokeswoman didn't answer questions seeking which U.S. district court issued the warrant and when, and whether Wang or Ma is being detained by the authorities. Justice Department representatives didn't return an email seeking the same information. An email sent to a personal email address belonging to Wang went unanswered at the time this post went live. Their resident status, e.g. U.S. citizens or green card holders, is currently unknown. Fellow researchers took to social media over the weekend to register their concern over this series of events. None of this is in any way normal, Matthew Green, a professor specializing in cryptography at Johns Hopkins, wrote on Mastodon. He continued, "Has anyone been in contact? I hear he's been missing for 2 weeks and his students can't reach him. How does this not get noticed for 2 weeks?" In the same thread, Matt Blaze, a McDivitt professor of computer science and law at Georgetown, said, "It's hard to imagine what reason there could be for the university to scrub its website as if he never worked there. And while there's a process for removing tenured faculty, it takes more than an afternoon to do it." Interesting. Local news outlets reported the agent spent several hours moving boxes in and out of the residences. WTHR provided the following details about the raid on the Carmel home. Neighbors say the agents announced, "FBI, come out," over a megaphone. A woman came out of the house holding a phone. A video from a neighbor shows an agent taking that phone from her. She was then questioned in the driveway before agents began searching the home, collecting evidence, and taking photos. The car was pulled out of the garage slightly to allow investigators to access the attic. The woman left the house before 13 News arrived. She returned just after noon, accompanied by a lawyer. The group of 10 or so investigators left a few minutes later. The FBI would not say what they were looking for or who is under investigation. A bureau spokesperson issued a statement. "I can confirm we could..." Yeah. Investigators were at the house for about 4 hours before leaving with several boxes of evidence. A lawyer representing the family who answered the door told us they're not sure what the investigation is about. So what we have here is a prominent professor of computer science and basically cryptography, which is like techniques for keeping information private, being kidnapped by the FBI, and their university just deleting them and their wife from their website, and nobody knowing where they are for weeks. This isn't just a random lefty. This isn't just some random guy at a protest off the street. We don't even know if this guy did anything. We've gotten to the point now where all of the previously expected protections and due process have been deleted.
The 1905 revolution marked the first major test of these ideological and tactical positions. All classes came into open conflict, and the strike movement reached unprecedented levels, evolving from economic demands to boycotting parliament and eventually armed insurrection. The Soviets, as organs of working class power, emerged spontaneously during this dress rehearsal, where the alternation of legal and illegal tactics, the relationship between the proletariat and the peasantry, and the debates over the role of the Soviets were all tested. Lenin asserts that without this dress rehearsal, which foreshadowed Bolshevik victory, the October Revolution of 1917 would have been impossible. However, when the 1905 revolution was defeated, the revolutionary movement entered a period of reaction. Tsarism reasserted control, and the revolutionary...
I think the thing that we need to be serious about is just the reality of you don't have the rights you thought you had. Do you think the lack of rebellion is due to fear, or do people lack an understanding of what could be accomplished? What would you even do? What would the rebellion even look like? You have to understand that there's not going to be a magic moment where suddenly it all makes sense that we need to be rebelling. It's going to go from a period of, whoa, that's illegal, to, well, sure, they're arresting people, but what do you want me to do? I don't really talk about politics. That's the pattern you're going to see. It's not going to be like, you're right, fascism is here, I must join the resistance. That's never going to happen. You understand that, right? And this is basically liberals in a nutshell. I'm going to say this outright. So they go to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, celebrating previous radicals and ignoring the current radicals that are fighting for justice. You take advantage of the people who got their heads cracked, and you ignore the people that are currently getting their heads cracked, or you even help crack the heads. This is liberalism in the nutshell. I love every social movement except the ones that are going on now, like for trans people or for Palestinians, right? And of course, Hakeem Jeffries is in the front. What a fucking loser. How do you like these people? And this is basically liberals in a nutshell. That's not the one I was thinking. I mean, like, say this outright. What a pathetic fucking loser, dude. I ain't going to a protest as a green card holder anymore. I'm quiet because I'm trying to reflect on what I should say here, which is it's incredibly easy for me to say, yes, you should. It's incredibly easy for me to say that as a U.S. citizen and child of U.S. citizens born in America. But what I would say to you is that every single one of us are at risk. And if you try to privilege your own personal risk over the collective risk that we're all under, you are creating the environment, you are creating the straitjacket, you are creating the chains that will bind you for the rest of your life. If you don't stand up now for your own rights, then they don't exist. This is something that I've tried to tell people for a long time. Haven't I talked to you about relying on the Constitution is like relying on a piece of paper as a bulletproof vest? The Constitution doesn't exist. Your rights don't exist, except how we collectively respect them. And if you step down the moment somebody tries to oppress us, then your rights were never real in the first place, and you're never going to get them back. I understand the fear. I understand the desire not to suffer oppression. This is very normal shit. But these people, the Trump people, are relying on you not fighting back. That's legitimately what it all comes down to. And the moment you let your anger subside for fear, you have already become one of them. Because that's what motivates the right. Fear and uncertainty. Everything the right wing does is based off of that. They are the ultimate psychological cucks. I think a lot about this because I want to say this about protest is an incredibly important element of getting media attention, but I don't think the media is open anymore. The other story that really disgusted me today is that Israel just did a mass execution of Palestinian rescue workers. They arrested a bunch of Palestinian rescue workers, bound their hands and feet, and shot them down in cold blood into a mass grave. On Sunday, the Palestine Red Crescent Society said it had recovered the bodies of 8 emergency medical technicians, 5 civil defense personnel, and a United Nations employee in Rafah in southern Gaza. The medical organization said it had lost contact with 9 of its crew members more than a week ago after they were directly fired upon by Israeli forces. The Israeli military said in a statement late Sunday that its forces had opened fire on March 23rd at several vehicles that had been advancing suspiciously toward the troops without headlights or emergency signals and without prior coordination. The military added that an initial assessment had determined that the forces had eliminated a Hamas operative and 8 other terrorists without explaining any connection to the emergency and rescue crew members who were killed. The Times could not independently verify the claims of either side. This is the only coverage that the New York Times gave the cold-blooded mass execution of 15 rescue workers. I don't know how to even explain this at this point. Like, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say.
وآخر منزوع الملابس العلوية.
One of them had his clothes removed from his body. Another one was beheaded. Peace be upon you, of course. What happened in the Rafah area and the loss of communication with civil defense and Red Crescent crews. We managed to enter the area in coordination with the UN, and our crews entered the area. Naturally, we witnessed a disaster, and we witnessed the massacre in a very precise manner. The occupation abused the civil defense crews. The Israeli occupation executed the crews directly and killed them in a brutal and truly terrifying manner. We were talking about one of the civil defense crews who had his feet tied, and another from one of the civil defense crews. One of them had his clothes removed from his upper body, and the other was beheaded. And another one, even all the martyrs who were martyred, the least harmed among them, had at least 20 bullets fired at him in his chest area. And truthfully, in a very tragic and difficult scene, all of our martyrs were buried in one mass grave, and approximately at a depth of 2 to 3 meters in the ground, in order to hide the crime. Of course, when we say that the occupation buried them in an area that is only a few meters away from the cars, that means that the occupation took them out of the vehicles, led them to this area, killed them, and then kicked them down into this hole. This scene, truthfully, I am saying, is one of the most heinous massacres that took place in the Gaza Strip in the modern century and even in the entire world. For the Israeli occupation forces to commit this crime that absolutely violates all humanitarian and moral values, anything else, for this reason, the world must realize that what's happening in the Gaza Strip, in terms of violations, are intentional crimes. Mass killing crimes, ethnic cleansing crimes, and genocide crimes. All international agreements stipulate the protections of service workers in the Gaza Strip. And all international norms also stipulate, however, the Israeli occupation until this moment is still continuing with the killing, bombing, destruction, and the killing of service providers in this brutal way. That happened to the Civil Defense and Red Crescent crews. Mercy for all the martyrs and a speedy recovery for our wounded. We ask God to have mercy on the martyrs of the Civil Defense and Red Crescent and all the martyrs of Palestine in his vast mercy. We hope that the world will wake up. It will not. It will not. It absolutely will not. Americans won't even defend themselves. How can people look at this and see anything other than a genocide? The IDF is subhuman. I don't think that's a hot take. This is just straight moral degeneracy. I mean, because they think they can get away with it. Every sociopath has a different story for why they are privileged. Sometimes it just breaks down to, this is how the world works. Either you're a wolf or you're a sheep. That's how these people, that's how they act.